Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring Unknown Armies, Book 1, Play. This is one of 3 core books for the Unknown Armies role-playing game. We will talk about the other 2 books in a few moments. In Book 1, Play, this book serves as an introduction and it contains the core system for the Unknown Armies role-playing games, at least at a basic level. In Book 2 and Book 3, there will be additional material. In Unknown Armies, players participate as a group of occultists, for lack of a better term. These individuals have personal goals. Maybe you just want to protect a single individual, or maybe you want to eliminate someone. But perhaps you have extremely ambitious projects, such as conquering the entire world or liberating it, depending on how you take a look at things. Or maybe you want to modify space and time itself. So this role-playing game is all about characters fulfilling their objectives, reaching some milestones, and evolving along the way. Depending on the things that you do, that you experience, your abilities are going to change. Now let's talk about the quality of the PDF. The quality is superb. The document is well written, organized, and explained. It has bookmarks, so it's going to be very easy for you to navigate the entire PDF. It's also hyperlinked. Now, when it comes to the graphic design and illustrations, the design is very neat, very clean. The illustrations are photorealistic compositions. That is, you have pictures of real people combined with digital art to create these modern occult fantasy compositions. So overall, the quality is great. You can get this as a PDF or as a physical book. The links will be in the description below. Now let's talk about the contents. Unknown Armies is an occult game about broken people conspiring to fix the world. It's a game about attacking or even shattering the status quo. You want something, and some greater powers do not want you getting that something. So the players need to set an objective for their player characters. It's going to be a collective goal, and the group is going to strive to achieve it. You may complete other objectives along the way. We will talk about that in a few moments. In other role-playing games, sometimes you are protecting a certain structure, but in this role-playing game, you are attacking the system, you are attacking the establishment. You play this role-playing game typically with a game master, players, and you need a couple of 10-sided dice because you are going to be rolling percentiles. The book in general gives you a short but sweet introduction to get into the tabletop RPG hobby. But remember, Book 1, which is the document that I am reviewing here, is about presenting the game, the sort of stories that you can tell, the adventures that you can experience, while presenting the core system. In Book 2, it's all about game master material. These are rules that the game master is going to use to create characters and the setting, while Book 3 is an encyclopedic compendium of occult weirdness that may or may not prove to be true facts in any given Unknown Armies game. Because the setting is very flexible. It's all about what you want. If you want to study or delve into the mysteries of the occult, that's one way of handling things. Or maybe you want to fight against different government organizations, criminal groups. In general, I would say that if you like conflicts related to organizations such as the Freemasons, the Rosicrucians, the Illuminati, all of that, this is the role-playing game for you. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this is a game about characters and their goals, their objectives. Such ambitions could be local, weighty, or even cosmic. You could affect reality itself. Depending on your objective, you're going to get a certain percentile value to see how likely it is for you to reach that objective. Maybe the chances are quite low. If it's something quite grand, like for example, taking over an entire region, maybe there is only a 40% or 30% chance of success. So you will have to accomplish many things to raise that probability of being triumphant in your goals. You pick a path to your objective. You will be accomplishing milestones along the way that will improve your chances of achieving your lofty goals. One important thing to keep in mind along the way is that your player character is going to experience all sorts of disturbing situations. Depending on how innocent or how tainted you are, so to speak, your abilities are going to be very different. This is measured with something called the shock gauge. The shock gauge is comprised of 5 shock meters, and they are a record of the absolute worst things that have happened to your character. The meters being helplessness, isolation, violence, unnatural, and self. Some of these are pretty self-explanatory, but when it comes to self, this is about your most personal failures and violations of your deepest beliefs. Each meter has a space for 5 failed notches, which you do not want to get. Failed notches are entirely bad. The only thing they help your character do is suck and die. You must avoid them as best as you are able. Each meter also starts with 8 open notches. The more open notches you have, the more your character is pure, unsullied, and maybe a little naive. If you wish, you can start by changing some of those into hardened notches, which protect that meter from further shocks. So, for example, if you have a lot of hardened notches in isolation, you are self-sufficient and used to being alone. Every character starts with and keeps 1 hardened notch on each meter, for a total of 5 notches in the gauge. As the game moves on, you're going to face further shocks and challenges. Rules-wise, these are called stress checks. If you get stabbed in the gut, that's a violence check. You roll dice to see whether you can handle it or not. If you can't handle it, you get a new failed notch, and a drastically reduced set of options. If you succeed at the roll, you get a new hardened notch. Hardened notches on a meter let you ignore lower stress checks, and the more notches you have on a particular meter, the more heinous a situation has to be to shake you. Hardened notches are not an unmitigated advantage, however. The more hardened notches you get, the more the abilities based on innocence erode. So basically, you become quite jaded as you go through these traumatic situations. This is part of your identity as a character. So for example, if you have remained somewhat pure and innocent, your abilities will be connect, that is making emotional connections with others, fitness, knowledge, notice, that is you pay attention to the world around you, and status, you are well regarded and trusted in your community. But when it comes to hardened notches, or if you are potentially hard-boiled, your abilities are going to be dodge, lie, pursuit, secrecy, struggle. Now this doesn't mean that you won't be able to use some abilities in the other category, that is, an innocent is not always going to be terrible at fighting because struggle is on the side of the hard notches. But it means that you are usually more specialized in one way or the other. Now let's talk about passion and obsession. The keys to an individual are in what motivates and drives them. Characters in Unknown Armies have 4 such keys, 3 passions and 1 obsession. The 3 passions are fear, rage, and noble, and they are pretty much what they say on the label. Fear is what scares you the most. Rage is what annoys you. And then there is the noble passion, the ray of hope on dark days, which is quite simply you at your best. By acting in tune with your passions, you can get that rarest of prizes, a second chance. This works as re-rolls of the dice or switching dice around. Finally, there is the obsession. All player characters in Unknown Armies are obsessed with something. These characters are not exactly cool, at least not on the inside. They may appear tranquil on the outside, but they are burning with passion and maddening obsession. Now, concerning your identity specifically, this could be any concept. Maybe you are a police detective, maybe you are an accomplished pianist or an assassin. There are all sorts of things that you can be. Some of them you would not expect in these sorts of occult environments. So the house painter could try to conquer the world, perhaps. The interesting thing is that every standard identity substitutes for at least one ability by default. Some can substitute for more. Substituting for an ability after the first is an example of a feature. So this way your character gets a bit more complex, there is more depth to you, and at the same time you can complement some areas in which you are not very good at because of your life experiences. And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about the world of unknown armies. As you can see, this RPG is quite focused on the character development, on the goals that you are achieving, following the character's career to the very end. Even if that character ends up dying, it will surely make up for some very dramatic stories. But what if that character ends up taking the scepter and the crown of the entire cosmos, perhaps? What reality will result from that character's ambition? Thank you for watching this part of the review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that have been supporting the channel by sending drive-thru RPG gift certificates. If anyone else wants to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.